Hey everybody, welcome back to Board and Savior. I am Ben and I am joined today by Kelsey from Girlsplaining.Gaming. We are going to be having a spirited debate about the merits, or in my opinion, lack thereof, of the hit board game Scythe. This game, so popular, number 19, I believe, on BGG's all-time top best games ever. But I think it's trash. So we will be debating it. Kelsey, welcome to the channel.
Hi everyone, my name's Kelsey. I run the Girlsplaining.Gaming channel. I talk about all sorts of games, a lot of video games, but I'm getting my way into card games and tabletop board games as well. Maybe we'll throw a few tag games in there. I'm so excited to be talking about Scythe today, one of my all-time favorites and actually the first tabletop strategy game I ever played.
Hi there, it's me, Ben from the future. Ben from the past did not provide the debate structure. He just didn't feel like that was important for you to know. But I think it is, so I'm going to tell you, and screw Ben from the past. We are both going to give an opening statement, and then we're going to go back and forth arguing why we think the game is good or bad. One of us will kind of give a premise, this is why I think the game is bad, and the other person will rebut and say, you're wrong, this is why it's good, blah, 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 blah. We'll go back and forth doing that for a while, and then we'll give closing statements. The reason that I'm telling you this, though, is because she has a different 3 premises, a different 3 arguments why the game is good or bad than are in this video. If you want the full debate, you've got to go over to Girlsplaining.Gaming after you're done here to see the rest of the debate. The opening and closing statements will be the same in both videos, but those meaty, oh yeah, we're debating, we're discussing, we're fighting to the death, that's different in both videos. So you gotta watch both. I mean, what are you doing if you're not watching both? So let's get into the opening statements. All right, first of all, I want to thank the panel of judges. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to get into this and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Scythe, which is in fact the correct pronunciation of the game, Scythe is a liar. This game is a trickster. It is a con artist. It might look like a game that offers incredible player interaction, combat, all of these wonderful stompy mechs all over the board, but guess what? Combat is one of the worst things you can do. It is actively discouraged by this game. Player interaction is extremely rare. You've got all of this game dripping with theme, and it's just about doing your taxes. It's optimization, it's efficiency, and it is nothing more than that. And I will prove this today in this debate.
Hello to the panel of judges that are definitely all out there. Thank you so much for having us and for letting me win today. I want to say that I think Scythe is the perfect introduction to strategy games, and that's something that I find pretty important at Girlsplaining.Gaming. Behind its layers of choice, it's demonstrative of a really clean optimization and engine building concept as a really good introduction to that. It is also one of the most beautiful games out there, and I think it's really attractive to people when they're looking at it, which is another thing that pulls you in and has you play it as your first one. There's a really great balance of focusing your advancement towards objectives while also keeping an eye on where your opponents are at, so it's a bit of a race. And Scythe was my first real introduction to strategy board games, so it's really nostalgic for me, and it has stood the test of time to remain one of my favorites, even as I've explored new game styles.
Uninteresting decisions disguised as interesting. If you want to play this game well, there is almost always going to be a best choice to make. Yes, there is variability depending on which faction and which action board you get, but when you take a second to look at the board, you see where you are, you see what your action board is most optimized to do, because there's the action that is the cheapest to what maybe you're good at building mechs, and you see, okay, I need 2 iron or whatever it is, steel to build a mech. And you go, okay, well, that's over there on the board. Well, I gotta make sure that I can get there, so I need to build a mine, which costs this wood resource. There's wood right here. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by getting wood so I can build a mine so that I can go there and build a mech. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Technically, you've made some decisions in there. but you've only made decisions based on what the game has told you is the most efficient thing to do. You're kind of not really playing the game. You're following the predetermined best steps laid out by the designer. And for me, that's just not a whole lot of fun.
Let me ask you a question. Did you sit in the back of the class in school?
Most of the time it was assigned seating. I didn't really have my pick. But if I had a choice before I got glasses, I would have been up front because I couldn't see. But after I got glasses, I was sitting in the back. Yeah, I was.
Okay. Unfortunately, the length of that answer doesn't really help me prove my point. I can't really refute that those choices in those situations are the way that they are. There's actually 49 different combinations of faction mat and player mat. Of course, as we know, 2 of them are banned. You're not allowed to play those. So, I think that's enough variability for me to feel like I'm getting something different every time. It's fair to also think that that's not enough. But I also think that if you're looking at what the other people are doing, depending on who you're playing with and how aggressively they're playing, you might have to stop what you're doing in order to try to interfere. But it is a lot of like looking at your own mat. Oh, yeah. Sometimes people take a long time to make decisions, just like I took a long time to think of that thought. And I will go through, and I think this is entertaining while someone is taking a really long turn. I love that this is a game where I can plan my next 10 moves, and I'll have those written out on a sheet of paper. Because, you can't in other board games necessarily do that. You can't say, all right, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and I have it all planned out, and then adapt when someone changes it because I have to draw a card next turn. No. So I think it makes for a reliable game experience that you can actually keep going without worrying too much about how the board state is going to change in one turn.
I think that almost perfectly encapsulates one of my big issues with this game. You said you can plan the next 10 turns and then, you can adjust if anybody messes with you. It is so rare for people to mess with you that you're often just planning your next 10 turns. And where's the fun in that? Where like at the start of the game, you can say, here's pretty much what I want to do for the entire game. And then for the most part, you just kind of do that. This is a game where there isn't a whole lot of reason to adapt on the fly, to problem solve, to make creative decisions, because everyone does have that same feeling on their side where they're like, well, this is my best path through the game. Typically that combat is going to come right toward the end where you've already got your popularity up real high so you can stand to lose a few and you've got all the military might that you need. So a lot of the time for the beginning to like 75% of the way through, you could just have all of that planned out. And then why are you even playing with people? Like what's the point? What's the interactivity? It is just so static and prescribed, and I think that's my issue with it.
I think that we both need to be more active Scythe players. Like, I think that we might need to play some games where the point is to f*** shit up. Because if we're not... sorry, can you not swear on your channel?
Swear away.
Okay, great. So, I think that Scythe is a little tricky to learn, especially if you're just starting as someone who has never played a strategy game before. And you might not be exploring and adventuring and seeing what you can do with it because of that. And maybe we get stuck in ruts and maybe we haven't played in a while. Maybe we're rusty. So perhaps we could see it as a challenge to play some games of Scythe where we need to mess things up for the other people. My friend has a strategy that I like to call spreading out the boys, which is a marker for the end of the game because, of course, you get points based on how many hexes you control. So when he gets all his workers out and then he starts moving his mechs around, I know that I gotta step it up and move quickly. But you're right in that I can't really do anything. Once he starts spreading out the boys, there's no stopping him. All I can do is spread mine out faster. I think that the creators really clearly lay out the expectations. Ben has been talking about how you have this expectation immediately demolished as soon as you open the packaging that you're going to be fighting it all. They say that in there. They also are, I think, respectful of your time. They know it takes a long time to play this game, and they encourage you to overlap your turns. One time I was playing a game of Scythe with 12 people. No, we did not have the expansion. We just were on teams, and it got really crazy. And you didn't know whose turn it was because you were just kind of all playing at the same time, but checking in to make sure that you weren't going past somebody who you needed to, all on teams of 2. I was the only person who'd ever played before. That was insane. It was awesome. But I think there's not a lot of other games where you can do that, and I'm somebody who, like, I'm not necessarily making dice towers, but, like, listen, it's gotten to all of our brains. I'm looking at my phone if I get bored, but I don't want to because I want to be present with the people that I'm playing with. But I think it's great that they really clearly set a lot of our expectations up for us in the instructions and the FAQ of the games on their website. They have actual, really helpful knowledge and detailed questions. I've looked up a couple things about Scythe and Wingspan and Finspan, and these really weird one-off situation questions actually have been answered in the FAQs, and I have not seen any treatment like that of a game before.
Okay, well, that is definitely a nice thing that the designers have done, but I think it is symptomatic of having made a game that doesn't stand all that well on its own. A game that when people see it, they think one thing, and then they have to read the rulebook and have the designer go, oh, wait a second, before you start playing my game, just know it's not what you want it to be. That feels like a little bit of a cop-out, and for the designers to be like, hey, also, wait a second, our game, it really overstays its welcome. Holy shit. Make sure you're, like, overlapping your turns, otherwise you're gonna be bored out of your mind, man. That feels like the designers are taking some liberties with what it means to design a game. If you're able to just, like, design a game that doesn't really hold together all that well, and then in the rulebook say, yeah, but, like, we know it doesn't hold together all that well, I'm not giving you all kinds of points for that, Jamie. Sorry for calling you up.
They're never going to send you free products.
Let me also say, and I got to put this in both videos, Jamie Stegmaier, you are absolutely fantastic. You are a boon to the board gaming space, and I'm not just trying to walk back how mean I've been in this video. Like, genuinely, you are the epitome of, like, what a designer should be. You're great. I'm just arguing for the sake of arguing. But you.
I don't know if this goes back too much to what you said a little bit ago, but I'm not the person who ever wanted it to be a war game. And I take a little bit of issue with the assumption that everyone does. I actually really appreciate that it's not. I like that it's smart. I like that it's something you have to think about. You have to race. I mean, you're right about a lot of those things. It's just that I happen to think that those are good things about the game. Nope, that was it.
My final point here is, surprise, it's a race game. This is a game that looked like it was about warfare, turned out to be all about resource management and efficiency, but actually, oh no, what's this? It was just a race all along. This is a game that I don't understand why they chose to do this. I really don't get it. The first person to put out their 6th star, which you get for accomplishing a variety of little objectives. Your 4th mech that you put out gets you a star. Your 4th recruit, your 4th building, your last worker, all these things get you a star. And when someone puts out their 6th star, the game ends instantly for everybody else. It's not a deal of I went first, so everybody else gets an extra turn after I put out my last star. This is a game that I truly don't get it. If you go first and you play optimally efficiently, everybody else around the table also plays optimally efficiently, you're gonna win the game because you went first. That is so strange, so, like, antithetical to what this game feels like it's about. I do not support this. There is a variant of the game that like allows you to play it as you might expect it to be played, where everybody gets the same amount of turns, but that's a variant. We got to judge it based on what the game is, not what the designer was like, wait a second, the game kind of sucks. Hold on, let me adjust it after the game came out. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. What do you have to say to that, Kelsey?
Very well said. An incredible impression. I think that Stonemaier Games is going to love you for that.
That was Jamie.
I think that if this game wasn't a race, it would be too long. When would you have it end? I'd love to hear what you want the benchmark to be for ending the game.
Okay, two things. First of all, I hit my mic. First of all, I think the way that the game ends with that 6th star put out is fine. I just think it's weird that not everyone gets the same amount of turns. If I start the game and then I put out the 1st star, I took 1 extra turn than everybody else around the table. And in a game that's about efficiency, that doesn't feel fair. I actually got more than you did. You lost because I got more than you, not because you played less efficiently. Second of all, I think the stars themselves are a little bit wonky because they encourage you not to like really vary your play style. You're not really going to have a play of this game where you're getting out 2 mechs, 1 recruit, 4 buildings, and 4 whatever.
You clearly haven't played with me yet.
Well, I mean, if you're bad at the game, then sure. Because all of the objectives are just like maxing out the thing, I think a lot of the time the game just encourages you to like get all of your mechs out and then get all of your buildings out and then get all of your workers out. It's not really like encouraging you to vary your playstyle where you're like, I'm not really going to go for mechs this game. You kind of have to go for everything every game because of that like race to that last star element, and then that homogenizes a game that is initially seemingly so asymmetrical. It takes this game that is like, oh, all these factions are different and they're unique and whatever, but like at the end of the day, everybody's kind of doing the same shit.
Right, and I do find myself in more recent games, as I've gotten more practiced at it, I go through the same thought process of, okay, I'm going to have 3 to 5 workers out so that I don't, incur the once a turn penalty for producing something, and then after a while, as soon as I get my power bolstered all the way up, then I'll do the power ones, but I have the star, so I don't have to worry about it, and then after that, maybe I'll get to popularity 1 at the end of the game, but like only on the last turn when I know I don't need to be producing. I can't argue with that part. I mean, that's true. I think that the variability for me comes in, sure, in the factions and the mats, but also really where you're starting. I think that the hexes surrounding you with the resources that are available to you is actually where the interesting part comes in terms of starting in a different place and what you have to work with, because sometimes it's really not going to be viable for you to get a mech first, so you have to go for the mine first to get out, but then you're already done with 25% of the buildings, so you might as well just make your buildings. I do think the one that doesn't make it makes sense. I think it makes it more balanced in a way that I don't like, because I love those technology cubes. Making upgrades, that's my shit. But unfortunately, there's 6 of them, and there's only 4 of everything else, so you are at a disadvantage doing that. But that's probably because they also help you so much with the cost of other things. So, yeah, you do kind of end up doing the same thing, but I think that looking at your getting out strategy still keeps it interesting and variable.
I fully recognize that there are people out there who like what Scythe truly is, that it is a game of optimization, of minimal player interaction, minimal conflict. My issue is one of perception. It is not that the game that it is not a solid game. I think it's actually pretty all right. Scythe is like a 6 out of 10 for me, maybe a 6.5. I think it's a little bit overhyped, to be fair, but my issue is not with the game that it is. It is with the game that it appears to be. I want a game about optimization that is proud to be about optimization, not one that purports itself to be about combat, to be about stompy mechs and giant tigers, and then is secretly about doing your taxes. If I'm going to play a game that is all about optimization, I want to play Brass Birmingham, a game that is proudly about doing the best you can with the numbers that you've got in front of you. But if I want a game that's all about combat, I've got options for that too. Kemet, Inish, Cyclades, incredible games all about fighting. And if I want a game with both, Twilight Imperium is right there. Scythe is a game that has these elements, and none of them feel good when you put them all together. And that's my issue with this game.
Something that we can't and wouldn't want to argue about is that Scythe is beautiful. It's a beautifully constructed game. The pieces are nice. The player mats are functional, and they're really well designed. The whole game is just really pretty. And once you've played it, I think, as I've explained, you're really well equipped to play many other strategy games. Maybe it might not be the best one to start with, but once you know how to play Scythe, you can play any game. I'll play some other game and I'll say, oh, it's just like this from Scythe, and I do that in pretty much everything else I play. It has high replayability because of the randomness of the faction and player mat combos and the addition of the achievement sheet, which I think is something really unique about this game that I actually haven't seen in other things. Mostly, I love it because it was my first strategy game, so I feel very nostalgic for it. But lastly, I want to say Scythe is a perfect game for those of us who were picked third to last in gym class. With de-emphasized combat, the strategic, agile, and quick will come out on top. I love this as a game where I can be competitive but not feel emotionally at odds with my opponent, win or lose, because it's more about what I can accomplish for myself rather than what I can accomplish against you.
Well, that'll about do it for this week's Board & Savior episode. Thank you so much to Kelsey from Girlsplaining.Gaming for joining me in this debate. Please, I am begging you, go check out Kelsey's channel. It is fantastic. Some super funny videos, but also very, very informative. If you are trying to get into board gaming, I think you could do no better than going over to Girlsplaining.Gaming. It's just, I mean, I'm sorry, it's just the best. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment down below with who you think won. You can say me. It's fine. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And I mean, subscribe to Kelsey's channel, but like also subscribe to mine. If you want to, you totally could, and I would not get mad at you at all. So, ta-ta, bye.